Toast and tea.
In 2016, I had a lot of things happen in my life. I need to do something to communicate better. All Toastmasters are brave people for saying, I want to be better.
During those anxious moments in your life, or perhaps when you're stepping in front of a crowd, how do you manage your anxiety so that joy can come back to the table?
It's mindfulness and breathing work. That's what saved me that morning before I went on stage. I had a mild panic attack.
Can you tell us how do you embody these three superpowers?
I love this question.
As the current District 2 director, you have a set goal to achieve Distinguished District.
I have some political aspiration, like I've always wanted to run for local office to get more involved in my community, and I figured this would be a good trial run for politics. A lot of leaders do burn out, and I can see why. When you're spending this much time giving yourself, you don't want to stop, but you have to. The better job I do at taking care of myself, the more I can give. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Toast and tea, where we have all the tea, tips, and stories, here to inspire you. Hosted by Little Norway's Toastmasters.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, Toast and Tea. I'm your host for today's podcast. My name is Shantia Crowley. So today we have with us a guest. Sara Rantschler joins Tableau.
Tableau, yeah.
Thank you. Tableau Toastmasters as a charter member in 2016, was elected Sergeant of Arms and hasn't stopped serving in every officer role since in her club. She's currently serving as the 2024-2025 District 2 Director. With a lofty goal of achieving Distinguished District, she's working with a full deck of volunteers over 20 hours a week to support this realized vision. Her leadership theme is Lead with Joy, and today she hopes to inspire you to do the same. Sara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be meeting you for the first time, and after reviewing your list of Toastmasters titles, such as being a program quality director and a District 2 director, and watching your 2019 speech at Tableau conference, where you spoke in front of more than 10,000 people, I have so many questions.
Let's get into it then.
First, though, I would love for you to tell our listeners more about yourself.
Okay. Well, like you said, I joined Toastmasters in 2016 on a whim. I saw a sign on a bulletin board at my work, and it said, "Come check it out." And I had heard about Toastmasters before, but I honestly thought that they were like cheersing, like I didn't know what it was. And so, to my surprise, when I was there, they had people giving impromptu speeches. They chose people for all the roles at the meeting there, and I could not believe the quality of content that people were able to produce on the fly at that meeting, where I was sitting in the back terrified, like, do not call on me. I reluctantly was elected Sergeant at Arms because by the time they got down to Sergeant at Arms, people were done volunteering. But that was the best thing that could have happened to me. Sergeant at Arms made me knowledgeable about the stuff we needed to run the meeting. And that really is the heart of the in-person meeting, is you need, your lectern and your agendas and your pens, and to make everybody feel like they're able to be prepared and give a quality meeting. But my Toastmasters journey has changed, and every year I feel like I'm leveling up. I call myself, I called myself a mediocre area director in 2019. I didn't really want to be area director, but they really needed one for my area. So I stepped up and I did the visits, but halfway through my year, it was COVID. So in 2020, and we shut down. And I remember sending kind of mean emails to the trio at the time because they just sort of expected everybody to convert to online right away. And there was a club in my district that's still alive today that most of the people didn't even own a computer. They were 100% online, a lot of seniors, and I just felt like it wasn't an inclusive decision to just leave all of these people behind. But I really appreciated how kind everybody was to me in the trio at that time. And they said, thank you, for your anger, thank you for pointing this out. Um, and I took that to heart, and it made me a better person. And I've just grown throughout my leadership journey in ways that I never expected. So that's sort of who I am and why I'm here, still putting in the hours every week. I know Toastmasters works, and the more you put yourself out there, the better you get.
I agree. So what initially, I want to back up a little bit, and then we're going to kind of zoom forward. What initially brought you through the door into the first meeting for your first Toastmasters meeting?
It was just a sign on a bulletin board, and
It
it
was a
just said,
sign. Okay.
yeah, it just said, come check it out. And they had these little tags, you could rip off the tag.
Hmm.
And so I just did that, and it was a full meeting room. Like, we had some pretty large meeting rooms at our work, and it was like holds like about 30 people, and it was standing room only. So there were probably about 50 people in the room. Yeah.
Oh, that is a big meeting. I've never
Yeah.
been to a meeting, well, not a regular club meeting that big before.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice. So did you feel like at this time you needed to work on your communication skills? What did you feel like it related to what you were doing professionally, or was it more of a curiosity?
So in 2016, I had a lot of things happen in my life. So I had just come back from a leave of absence for 6 months due to migraine. And I bought my first home after leaving like an abusive relationship. And I was just thinking, I need to do something to communicate better because I had been gaslit to believe that I was a bad communicator. And so I needed the confidence to be my authentic self
Hmm.
in any situation because I was masking a lot. Like I was trying to be what I thought I needed to be instead of just being who I am, which is the right way to go.
Finding your voice. That was the
Yeah.
theme. That was the theme of my life too.
Yeah. Yeah. And just being confident that it's okay to mess up, it's
Mhm.
okay to have do something. If it gets done, like you should celebrate. And really the lesson I've learned is it's about the journey. Um, because once you get done with something, it's a little bittersweet. Um, it's really the ride that I really enjoy.
Yeah, it sounds like you're at a turning point in your life, and that's what I've
Yeah.
heard is very similar for a lot of other Toastmasters, which brings me to another question. So at the time when I think it was my second year of Toastmasters, I set this intention for myself that I wanted to step into more leadership. I wanted to step into the front of the class or raise my hand, be that student who raises their hand versus being that student who doesn't raise their hand at the back of the class. And interestingly enough, one of the officers of our club walked up to me and asked me, I was the secretary prior to that, but they asked me if I'd be interested in being the president. I was like, oh, okay. What an honor for you to be asking me to step up into such a big role. And then next year I was asked to be their director. So it was almost like the universe heard me and was arranging it so that I could fulfill this role. What intentions do you feel like you set for yourself prior to taking on leadership roles?
I think for me, I've always been a person who wants to constantly improve. And so for me, that's what this is about. But also, I have some political aspiration. Like, I've always wanted to run for local office to get more involved in my community. And I figured this would be a good trial run for politics. And I think it has set me up pretty well to be able to keep myself cool under pressure in a lot of different situations.
You stated that you didn't want to be an area director when you were asked to do that. Can you tell me, so what led to you saying yes? Why did you say yes to the role?
It was the relentless emails from the division director to everyone in our area. All the officers, he sent an email. I think it was at least once a week. Um, and I just got tired of getting the emails, and I thought to myself, I've done every role pretty much, every officer role, and I've met the area directors before. Like, I could probably do it, but that was also the time that I was preparing for Devs on Stage. So it was like, can I really do this and do Devs on Stage? And I was just very busy that fall. Like, that's just what but it was really good for me because on the prep to Devs on Stage, I was able to go to all these club visits, and a lot of them just needed a speaker, and so I was able to talk, and get a little bit more comfortable in front of different audiences. So just like you said, the universe kind of knew what I needed, even though I was reluctant to say yes.
How do you feel now where you're at after you've fulfilled that role, or looking back at it and some of the other roles that you've taken on in district leadership?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, looking back, I feel like I am a completely different person today than I was even at the start of 2024. Um, and every year I think, oh, maybe this is, I think I've done it, I'm a great leader. And then I realize, oh my gosh, I have so much more to learn and
Mhm.
ways that I can grow and be better. In 2019, I was really like an unhealed individual. Like, I had a lot of negative self-talk happening. And so I was kind of my own worst enemy. And so that's been the biggest change between 2019 and today, is that now the inner voice is joyful and caring, and kind. And the voice back then was motivated by, the other side of the shoulder. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So I watched Inside Out too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Disney movie. So in it,
Yes.
a young girl named Riley, she's in her preteens and she's going through puberty. And one of her emotions is named Joy. And Joy gets literally pushed out by another character whose name is Anxiety. And anxiety, I feel, is like in us, anxiety is a perfectly normal human emotion that we all experience. During those anxious moments in your life, or perhaps when you're stepping in front of a crowd, how do you manage your anxiety so that joy can come back to the table?
A lot of practice. Um, for me, it's mindfulness and breathing work. Um, that's what saved me that morning before I went on stage. I had a mild panic attack. I like quiet, so I went somewhere quiet and breathe, like, just focused on the breath until I came back. And then once I was back, I was good to go. I always get nervous. It doesn't matter how many people, even for this, I had to do some breathing and regulation and prepare for this experience. And I think that that is part of mindfulness. It's giving yourself the space to experience all those emotions, but realize where you really shine. and where your real superpower is, so that you can come back to that in moments when you really want to inspire.
I feel like I've learned a lot about myself in terms of accepting the spectrum of my emotions. And that's interestingly enough, Toastmasters has taught me a lot about that, especially when you're getting up there to do a speech or afterwards, if you're feeling self-conscious, you have to find a way to let it go and just appreciate the experience for what it was and not get in your head about it. But that's
Yeah.
something I've been learning about myself. So, something that you made known to me prior to this interview, you mentioned in an email that joy, grit, and bravery are your three superpowers. Can you tell us how do you embody these three superpowers?
I love this question. So, Lead with Joy is my theme for the year as a district leader, and I'm trying to weave that into everything that we do, because Toastmasters really just is a joyful thing. You know, if you're not laughing at your meeting, you're doing something wrong. Um, and I've been really had to create some strong boundaries in order to continue to be joyful, because a lot of leaders do burn out, and I can see why. When you're spending this much time giving yourself, you don't want to stop, but you have to. So that's sort of how I stay joyful, is by caring for myself too, and making sure that I am first, so that when I show up, I can help others. And the better job I do at taking care of myself, the more I can give. Um, and then grit is really all about not giving up no matter what happens. I learned this very young. I grew up on a farm. Um, and it's doesn't matter how many times, you fall down or fall off a horse. You get back up, you get on that saddle, whether you've got tears running down your face, and you're bruised, you just do it. And it's something, when I moved to the city, that I realized was special about me. um, is that people say, like, that by sheer force of will, I can make something happen, like a Toastmaster meeting. Oh, we're going to cancel. It's like, oh no, let's ask this person, and let's ask this person, and then just magically it happens. Um, so that's my superpower, is I just don't give up to my deficit sometimes. And the bravery part, I had to realize along the way that I am brave. Like, you're brave, like, for signing up for Toastmasters, for giving a speech. Like, these are brave things that we're doing. And we should acknowledge that, and celebrate that all Toastmasters are brave people for saying, you know, I want to be better. Like, let's be vulnerable and work together to do that. It's a beautiful thing.
It sounds like you're owning it. It sounds like you are definitely letting that help you drive your ship. So you sound very solidified in that mantra of yours of how you embody your superpowers. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
So you had the opportunity to speak at the 2019 Tableau conference, which, for those who don't know, Tableau is a data visualization company. Speaking in front of 10,000 plus, I imagine, is no easy feat, but nonetheless, it's an incredible opportunity very few get in life. You were radiant. I loved how you talked about playing Pokemon Go and how fun your gestures were. What led up to you receiving that opportunity?
A big reason I was able to get that opportunity was from Toastmasters. Um, I had applied before I was a Toastmaster. I had joined Tableau in 2012, so I believe I applied in 2014, which is when I was giving regular talks at the conference, so I felt pretty comfortable in rooms of 100 or more people. Um, but I didn't get in, And then in 2019, I applied with a video link to not just my tech talk from conference, but also my winning humorous speech at area competition, where I talked about rats that were in my garden, and I even pretended to be a rat. And so that won the CDO over. He even told me after that he just got such a kick out of that speech, that he was like, you've gotta be Dev on stage.
That's awesome. That's cool. And I like that you took the initiative to sign up for it. So it sounds like I don't know, something like that would sound very intimidating to me. But it sounds like you wanted to, even prior to that, even prior to joining Toastmasters, you wanted to be speaking in front of people.
Yeah, yeah, I've always been someone who does put themselves out there. Like when I was a kid, I was really involved in theater and used to organize plays in the summer at my house. So parents like just kind of got used to carting their kids to our house every week for practice, and then we do like a performance, and so it was kind of the highlight of the years, like what play is Sarah gonna do this summer kind of thing. So I've always been kind of a planner and um a thespian, like a performer.
I love that. And yeah, it just sounds like you found a way to realize your childhood dream in a practical way or in a practical expression, so to speak.
Or a way that helps others, which I think
Yeah,
is the best. Yeah.
I agree.
Mhm.
So
'Cause yeah.
how did you feel after you did it?
Um, I like to say that that was the best and worst day of my life because I mean, I started the morning at like 4 a.m. and it was like an 8 a.m. show. So, I was there at 6 a.m. and had a panic attack like right around 7 after I had all my makeup and hair done and everything. And the person running the show, um, she was worried about me because I kind of disappeared. But it was really for me the hearing the audience come in, hearing the chatter of the audience. I just wasn't prepared for that sound because they put it in like film, like in the background, but you don't expect it to actually sound like that, like when you're backstage. And I
Yeah.
just felt like I was in a movie and like, is this really happening? Like, are 10,000 people really coming? And it's like, yes, they really are. They're being seated like it's happening. But after it was over, it was just like the best feeling, like elation. And then I had to go to do an interview right after with like a podcast. And then I had they called it like by the pool. And I had like a talk where I just like took questions in the middle of this data village. And so like about 200 people showed up to that and wanted to ask me questions. So it was just like a wild ride. And the evening was this big party that they have every year at Tableau Conference. And so everyone knew who I was. I had pink hair. And the way that I got around that night was saying um like data rock star or like high five, and like because everybody wanted to give me a high five. And so that is my trick. If you ever need to get through a crowd, just give people high fives and they move to the side and you could just shuffle right through. But it was just such a fun day and evening, and party, and just I'm still friends with all those people that did it together. Like we'll be bonded for forever.
Yeah, it's so memorable because there's
Oh yeah.
only well, I watched some of it,
Yeah,
but there's like
there were
what,
five
five?
of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a small select
Yeah.
few of you.
Yeah, so the way it works is there's 5 on stage and then there's 5 off stage, so everybody has a backup, and it's a live
Mhm.
demo. So I'm doing the demo
Oh,
there.
you were
Like,
you so like with the computer
I'm
and everything, you were doing
literally,
that? That was one of my
yes.
other questions. Were you
And
actually
that
clicking?
was, yes, that was actually one of the hardest things for me is learning
Oh
how to
my goodness.
zoom, how to circle things
I
like
can't
at the
multitask
proper
like
time.
that.
No, it took a lot of practice. I was horrible at it at the beginning. But my system actually broke down 3 times during that presentation. Um, I only noticed two of them during the demo. But yeah, they have a backup where the backup person is doing the exact same thing on a different system. And if it fails over, then it fails to the backup. But yeah, so mine had 3 failovers. It was like a record. Yeah, so it was just the technical demo part was a huge challenge. Like people don't understand how much skill it requires to do that and make it look
Yeah.
good.
I like to make fun YouTube videos from time to time, and I use two cameras sometimes to shoot. And it's taken me some time. I'm like, I'm not a great multitasker, honestly. If I just had one camera and a mic, that's like the best day for me. But I've been learning how to work with technology and just show people different perspectives, and it's very challenging to make it look
Yeah.
effortless.
Yes. Yes. That's why I tell people if it looks easy, it's because somebody put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
Like nothing just looks easy. Like they are
No,
skillful.
there's so much preparation that goes into presentations. There's so much preparation that goes into speeches. So like, why don't you share more on your preparation tips?
So for Devs on Stage, I learned a lot about preparation. We practiced 3 times a week for about 9 weeks leading up to the day with a professional speech coach, and we had executives coming in and out to give us feedback as well. Because not only did we have to write our own content, we got to pick the features that we were showing. So there was a little bit of politics involved of like which feature makes the cut because we only had about 7 to 10 minutes each. And I was lucky that my features were so like powerful. Um, but the day, or I bet it was about a week or two before, legal was reviewing my content because I mentioned Pokemon Go. I have Pokemon in my entire presentation. Um, and they were concerned with copyright infringement and warned me ahead of time that like my family should probably watch live because they aren't sure if they're going to be able to publish my my video. So it was like this extra stress.
Mm.
They did have me change one thing. I like when I do the Magikarp to complete transformation, I had this thing where I had Gyarados on it, and I was like, "It's Magikarp, but now it's Gyarados," and they were like, "That's too many Pokemon." So they did have me cut that, but it was such a kick to see photos of the huge teleprompters because they have those big screens to show you
Mhm.
to the back of the room and have the subtitles say Magikarp on it. Just so much fun. Worth it. Even the stress of um potentially getting cut out of the video, you know? Yeah.
Wow, see, if people don't know, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of preparation and my I never write a script. That's one thing about me is I
Hmm.
don't write my script speeches down, so they're different every time. And that drove my team crazy because every time it took different amount of time. And luckily on the day I was perfect. I was like exactly in the time I needed to be. But I basically gave the manager a bit of a heart attack just because every single practice, it's just a little bit different, you know.
Hmm.
But I think that's part of just who I am. Like I'm in the moment. I'm like,
Hmm.
um, if I wrote down my speech, it wouldn't be a Sara Rantschler speech. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't.
No, everybody has their own what works for them. And I've tried both versions. I've tried, scripting the entire thing, and I've tried not scripting before, and they both work, just
Yeah.
depending on maybe your mood. I think everything depends on the mood, and it depends on the moment and what you're ready to bring to it, because there's always room for improvisation and making things up as you go along.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So at this point, it's been 8 years since you joined Toastmasters. And other than serving every officer role in your club, you've been serving in district leadership since 2019. Now, as the current District 2 director, you have a set goal to achieve Distinguished District. What has brought you success in moving towards this goal? And what has been a challenge?
So District 2 has not achieved distinguished since 2018 to 2019 year. That was a year we were select distinguished. So since COVID, we've essentially been in this rebuilding cycle. And what I said as my goal when I took up PQD was that possibly by the time I'm district director, we can achieve distinguished, but that might even be too lofty of a goal. But I definitely wanted the next year to be really like set up well. So every year we're healing. But at the beginning of this year, my team said to me, no, we could do it. We can do it this year. We don't have to wait. We've got it. So they really inspired me to set a higher goal than I had originally like planned for myself, and it's really been helpful. The things that have really worked for me are the grit and determination of not giving up to fill every area director role so that every area is represented. That was a huge achievement to accomplish, because I think I only had, like half a dozen going into the year. So we filled, 20 roles. And then continuing with the joy and the recognition, we did an event in November where we just celebrated all the distinguished clubs from last year, and we haven't done that in a long time. And people showed up. There were over 100 tickets sold, and people want to celebrate. And we're already seeing that our membership numbers are surpassing the predictions from Toastmasters. So in terms of membership, we are ahead. Our struggle and challenge is on the membership requirement. So the +3 requirement, or the 20 to qualify for distinguished. So we're planning a open house incentive for February to try and get more people in our doors to help with that, because we think if we can just get a few more members, in these clubs, that we could actually achieve distinguished. So the February officer training is going to be focused on membership building and trying to really help our members focus on each other, because that is really what gets people in the door and keeps them there.
Right.
Like, yeah.
I love how you said that your team helped to encourage you to believe in a bigger goal for yourself. And I think it's so important for people. I'm learning that a lot as an area director this year, is how much more motivated I feel having a community or support system around me, and learning that actually pushes me to believe in achieving more for myself, or maybe more for our district, not thinking
Yeah.
small.
Yeah, it's like that proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it's true. You can do amazing things if you just take the time to include your community in your vision. And it does take time to communicate that. I spend so much time on the phone now. I never expected that, but you have to communicate in order to achieve. And unless everyone's on the same page, you're all going to be going in different directions. So that's really what I've been focusing on, is making sure that everybody on the team has the same vision and we're all showing up with joy. And I think we're doing a really good job of that. So we're just going to keep going.
That's awesome. And I've met so many, as the area director this year, I feel like I've met so many leaders this year who have qualities that I want to emulate. And just in this podcast alone, I can see why you've been able to grow into that position where you're at now. It just seems like like you said, you lead with joy. You lead with sort of an optimistic perspective of believing that you guys can achieve your goals, believing that you guys can push forward. And I can feel it. It feels sincere. It feels very genuine.
Yeah. I think that's also very important, is to be genuine, because people feel it. And like Maya Angelou said, they're not going to remember what you say. They're not going to remember what you did. They're going to remember how you made them feel. Yeah.
1000%. Okay, so I think we're coming to the close of this podcast, Sarah. What final words do you have for those who are pursuing professional or their professional or personal goals in life?
So I'd say, if you are wanting to be a leader, and maybe you're sitting there wondering why you're not already a leader like I was, I would say just do it. Just jump in and try, because even if you fail, you're going to learn and grow so much. And it's easy and comfortable to judge someone else and sit there and say, oh, she should have done this, or, they should have said that. But it's quite another thing to walk those shoes and that path. And so that's what I would inspire or encourage you to do, is to say, I may not be ready, but I'm going to try. And it's okay if my best isn't quite good enough. I'm going to get better.
I love that. Keeping it really simple and to the point. And it also makes me think about how, as a child, you don't know how much work your parents put into raising you until you either have your own kids or you're around kids, or maybe just adulting in life, period. You're just like, whoa, this is intense. I can see why it ain't so easy after all.
No, it's definitely not easy, but it is so much fun. These roles are challenging, but also I wouldn't keep doing it if I didn't absolutely love the community. Like, the people really make it worth it. And I'm always meeting like new Toastmasters that I'm just like, oh, you're my friend now. Like, sorry, not sorry, but you're being added to the community of what helps me lead with joy.
I love that. Well, we are going to end it on that note. That's a perfect note to end it on. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us for this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I had a great time. So just feel free to have me back anytime you want.
We would love to. So bye, everyone. We will see you for another episode of Toast and Tea.